Dang it, another one?
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Nat One Grung. Today we are going to be going over doing the bases of our miniatures and what we're going to do beyond the paint job on the miniatures to prep the bases. Initially, what you want to look at is the composition of the miniature itself and the kind of environment that you believe that specific miniature would find itself in, as well as the environment that your campaign setting is. So if your campaign setting is something based in the Feywild, obviously you're going to run into a lot different textures and different stuff on the base than you would if it was something in more of like a dry, arid desert. So moving forward, we're going to be doing the bases on these two miniatures right here. So this is going to be Franz the Fungi, and this is going to be Katrick the Lifeless. So we are going to be doing the bases on both of those today. So we will start with Franz right here. So Franz right here is basically a mushroom dude. So he's going to be found in a more forested area with a lot of vegetation. So when you're doing the base for him, you're going to want to include a lot of greenery and stuff like that to kind of lean into the idea of where you're going to find this. A couple things you're going to want to get around to have on hand. This is just some random stuff that I've just found around my yard. What you're going to want to do, this is an assortment of smaller gravel and dirt. These are some sticks. So once you collect this stuff and you're going to get ready to use it for doing the bases on your miniatures, what you're going to want to do is put it all on a metal sheet, tin foil, something like that, and then put it in your oven at around 100 to 150 degrees, and then leave it in there for an hour. That's just going to kill off any bacteria or anything, any living stuff going on, and it'll just make sure that all of the moisture is out of things like your sticks and stuff like that, to make sure that there's not going to be any shrinkage or anything like that. And along with stuff like that, you can introduce some artificial stuff. This is just artificial moss I have. This comes in giant rolls. You can get a pretty large amount of it at any hobby store for a pretty cheap price. Along with the artificial moss you get at hobby stores, or this is something made specifically for doing base work on miniatures. So these are just little tufts of essentially grass, and each one of these is going to have some adhesive on the bottom of it, so you can just kind of stick these onto the bases of the miniature. So if you're looking for something just quick, easy, and simple, all you're going to do is you're going to put a base layer of paint on the base of the miniature, something like an earth tone or maybe grass, and then you just pop one or two of these tufts on there, and that's just going to be the quickest and easiest way to do it. But in this episode, we're going to get a little more in depth and show you a couple ways to do it without having to spend money on anything except some basic items that most people will already have access to. So to start off, you're going to get some basic craft paint. This is just random tacky glue I had. So what I like to use is a little tongue depressor, and then I'll just get a little bit of that on the end. And then once I've got a decent amount of that, you're going to go to the base, and what we're going to do is just work that onto the base. So this glue right here is going to dry clear. so you don't have to worry about it showing through as white or anything like that. But what you will want to keep an eye on is how much of it you're putting on there, because if you put too thick of a layer on there, it will kind of puddle up and it'll look like a transparent kind of glob sitting on the base there. So once we're sure that we've got the entirety of the base kind of coated in that, we'll set that down, and then we're just going to go to the plate here, and then I'm going to get some of this finer dirt here, and we're just going to sprinkle that on there. So once you get that sprinkled on there, you're going to want to cover all of the adhesive you have. And the reason I'm doing this over the plate is so any excess is just going to fall onto the plate and we can reuse that moving forward on any of the other parts. So we're not having to go through and get a brand new batch of it. So once we get it all on there, what you're going to do is you're going to kind of shake it just to get any excess that's not caught on the adhesive off of there. And then if you look at it, we have a nice even coating of dirt on the entirety of the base. And as you can see, there is no longer any of that adhesive showing. But if you look at the bases near the feet on him, so right around here, there is going to be some overlap where it's kind of smudging a little bit of dirt onto his feet. So you can just take a brush, keep it dry, and then kind of work that off of there. In the end product, once the glue's all dry, you can come back in and just blow on it with your mouth and it'll kick most of that dirt off of there. So now that we have the bottom layer of the base established, we can go ahead and work in a few more things. So now we're trying to get into a little bit more precise stuff. So what I'm going to do is some other parts of this stick that I'm not going to use, I'm just going to go ahead and get a bunch of the glue on there. And once we have a bunch of the glue worked onto that stick, what you're going to do is you're going to find a rock or something like that comparable in size to the miniature that would look like something natural around it, and you're going to work a bunch of adhesive onto a flat spot of that you want facing down. Set that back on there. We'll pick him up, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to work that rock onto there and then seat it gently. So now that that's on there with some adhesive, you can see that we've got the rock on there as well as the rest of that dirt to create a more alive base for that miniature, to make it seem like it's in an active environment and it's not just something kind of just sitting on a gray base. So it lends more into the realistic side of things. So along with that type of base, you may run into some miniatures that have a base that has more three-dimensional items on it. This grung right here is in an action pose where he's jumping out of the water. So a base like this is something where using like the dirts and the rocks and stuff like that is not going to be as necessary, because with him jumped up out of the air, obviously there's not going to be a giant cloud of dirt under him. So that's something where you would go through and you would paint that in maybe like a transparent blue to make it seem like maybe he's jumping out of water or something like that. But we'll go ahead and do the base on this one. So we will get the adhesive around, and once we've got that all on the stick, so this one we will go ahead and we will use one of these little grass pieces on. So I went ahead and took that off, and I'll set that on here. So we've got that ready to go. Get the stick all covered in adhesive. And then we'll just go ahead and get that worked onto the base. So doing base work on miniatures isn't something that needs to be cut and dry. You can do pretty much whatever you want. The main goal of it is just to add another sense of this miniature actually living in whatever environment you're finding it in. So I have found that sticking to stuff like mainly using dirt with maybe a couple rocks here and there, along with a few tufts of grass, can kind of lend pretty well to fit into a pretty large variety of environments. So it's not something where you are kind of shoehorning yourself into a specific environment for that miniature. So now that we got that grass tuft on there, we can go ahead and get some of this finer dirt around and sprinkle that on there. Just making sure to get as complete of a coverage as possible. And using this white craft glue makes things a lot easier because it's pretty obvious when you've got coverage on something and when you may need to go back in and give it a little bit more. Alright, so at this point we've got pretty full coverage on that. So once again, we'll go ahead and we'll just shake it to get all the excess off. And then what we will do with him is we'll do a little stick behind him. And obviously proportionally, this is a very small stick, but in a reference to the miniature itself, this will come out more around like a decent sized log or something like that. So we got adhesive stuck on that stick individually. Then we'll go ahead and put that down. You can see a little bit of adhesive on that back end. So you can just go ahead and sprinkle a little bit more dirt on there. And then you can see on the front there, that graft tuft is showing through pretty well. And then working around to the back, you can see where we just kind of placed that small stick right there. So that is going to be complete coverage on that. So we'll go ahead and set him down. So like I said, basic stuff, dirt, small rocks, sticks, and just some cheap craft glue you can get from the store. Once you get that all set, and obviously once you have the paint job all set on your miniature, this is the point where if you want, you can go ahead and go through with a matte clear coat spray paint, and that's good, just going to help hold everything on there even better, and that's going to help maintain the paint job on the miniature. So this is the point on these miniatures where I would go through and do that, just to help maintain the paint job, maintain the base. So as people are going through grabbing these, moving them around on the table, you're not going to have to worry about the paint job fading, the dirt coming off, or maybe like even the graft, that little grass tuft getting kicked off of there. So there's him, and here is Franz the fungi. So you can see we've got that small rock set there, and the rest of the base is pretty much dirt. So like I said, these bases are more of a simplistic coverage to lend into these being able to be implemented in a bunch of different environments. It's not something where you're stuck with having to use him in only one campaign. It just gives you a wider variety to look into using it in kind of any campaign setting. And I just want to say thank you for watching. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and keep tuned to our channel. We're going to have a lot more content coming out Feel free to drop down in the comments if you have anything specifically you're looking for, whether it be miniature related, Dungeons and Dragons, or anything tabletop role playing. So thank you, and have a good one.